February 21st, 2024. The Russians have now completed the conquest of Avdiivka after about, what was it, about a 2 or 3 month battle there. And this one was done in a fairly slick way. It was interesting. You can see that these people over there really are chess players, the way they went in there and strategically pinned down the supply lines and then pretty much just collapsed the whole thing in a few days when it finally went after about 3 months of siege. But when it finally went under, it went under pretty dramatically. Partly this may be due to the fact that certain elite Ukrainian units had already been withdrawn from the city, and I think that the supplies had run low, and that's one of the issues that, of course, we're discussing. And so in other areas, the Russians are maintaining a variety of offensives all across the front. And of course, this is particularly, they seem to be renewing offensives in the area over in the Zaporizhia area called Robotina. And of course, after an initial feint along the Dnieper River, which was repulsed by the Ukrainians, then the Russians seem to be primarily interested in eliminating that salient that the Ukrainians developed during their offensive last summer. And that seemed to be the basic thrust of things. And so there's a bunch of other stuff going on here. Of course, the Democrats are blaming the Republicans for not providing the money that has been requested. And of course, I think the Republicans could blame the Democrats for not making a decent compromise on border security, but we've been through that in many of the other videos. But as far as the actual conflict, I kind of want to get into where we think we're going with this and what some of the issues are. By the way, if you like these videos, please give me a like. It helps with the algorithm. Always looking for more subscriptions, and of course, you can click the bell for notifications if you've subscribed. So that's kind of the way the thing goes. And it looks like in this case, the Russians managed to pull this off with a lot less casualties than they did in the battle for Bakhmut, last year, which was, involving the former Wagner group. Now the Wagner people, or former Wagner people, whatever, are now integrated into actual Russian units and kind of split up into different sectors as assault units. So that they sort of kind of have them now under control. They don't have a single, I think, command like they did before, which led to that weird abortive coup attempt. So like I say, that I think right now it looks like there's some of the smaller front cities are under siege, and of course back in the salient at Robotina, they're definitely working on trying to eliminate that step by step. But as always in these conflicts, they go fairly slowly. This is real kind of trench warfare in a sense, and with some new technological twists like drones, which they didn't have that in World War I, which has the effect of making the artillery even more deadly than ever. Plus, the idea these drones can drop little bombs on you in your trench. So anyway, so that's kind of the situation. I guess looking forward is how serious of a problem this is from an overall position, both from the NATO, U.S. position and from the Russian position. Well, I think one thing is I don't expect to see Ukraine completely fall under Russian control anytime soon. Of course, we can wait and see how that goes, but I tend to think that is unlikely. So, a typical thing you'll see on the various talk shows about this, particularly on what we might call the pro-war faction on our side, is that this idea that is being put out that Putin is some kind of a complete incorrigible aggressor who wants to, I don't know, conquer what, I'm not sure. But the general idea seems to be that if somehow you don't totally defeat the Russians here in this situation, that they're going to actually go forward and attack NATO and go to war with the NATO alliance. which is really, you sometimes think, well, what kind of a deterrent capability do they think NATO has? I mean, that brings in the full force of the United States and all these other countries in NATO, Germany, Britain, France, and so forth. And while you could imagine, I guess, that some sort of attack could happen, I think it's extremely unlikely. For instance, we've not seen any direct attacks on supply lines inside of Poland toward Ukraine, which would seem to make more sense than an attempt to actually invade and conquer Poland or something like that. The idea is really laughably absurd to anybody that understands the military strategy involved here. In fact, as it is right now, I am very dubious that the Ukraine army and military is going to be defeated in a very rapid way at all here, even if the U.S. aid package doesn't come. And I would also warn the Russians that this aid package may still come, even if it's delayed. I mean, the various machinations in Congress that have been going on involve multiple positions. You have the positions that are totally for the aid to Ukraine. You have the people that are willing to give the aid to Ukraine in return for border security. Then you have people that perhaps don't want to give aid to Ukraine under any conditions. So it's kind of a mixture. I think that, so when we've gone through those discussions, I haven't really changed my position on it. I think linking the two makes some sense. It also makes sense, of course, to pursue a diplomatic situation to try to end this conflict. Now, but I don't see, I mean, we could imagine that, and of course, in the month ahead, two big events are going to be happening. One will be the Russian election, which presumably will reelect Putin and leave him in power. And two, we're going to be going into the use of the rainy, muddy season, in which mechanized offensives are probably going to be limited. Insofar as the attacks are basically primarily infantry attacks and are being fought in these fortress cities that Ukraine has set up, that may very well go forward during this period. And one would think, given the preponderance of forces that the Russians have put together and basically the training of these units now, I think they will probably be able to continue to make advancements in those areas. But of course, there could be. I mean, another thing that's changed is that the Russian Air Force has become more effective recently because of the decline of air defense on the Ukrainian side. And this, of course, probably is mainly due to the lack of supplies and attrition and utilization of the munition stocks that they had in place. Although it does look to me like there's at least one or potentially more Patriot batteries that are loose somewhere inside the Ukrainian lines that pop up at various positions and shoot down an aircraft or two by surprise and then apparently move to a different location. Recently, there's been claims of about 6 Russian airplanes shot down with no real confirmation on the Russian side. So I don't know if these are bogus claims or whether the Russians are not admitting to it. But what's interesting is nobody's showing the wreckage of the planes on the ground either, so I don't know, maybe they came down inside of Russian lines while escaping from a bombing run, and therefore if they came down in their lines, they might just keep it under wraps, although there's a lot of people taking videos and pictures with their cell phone cameras and posting them on various, the Telegram channel primarily. So I don't, but we'll have to wait and see how that's going. The fate of the Russian Navy continues to be pretty bad, and it's amazing they've yet to come up with a good counter strategy to the suicide robotic drones that the Ukrainians are using. And I've thought of some ideas, but apparently they haven't. Well, it's not my job to tell them; it's their job to figure it out. So, but it is an interesting situation for them. And of course, it's the Houthis are tried a similar maneuver on us and failed so far. So apparently, we're doing a little better than the Russian Navy, huh? So that kind of is a situation. So I don't I think the idea that there's a real threat to NATO, or that Putin is on a complete rampage, to try to make an analogy, something like Hitler, I think is completely wrong. Where he becomes very dangerous, I think, is if he's losing, as I've said before. I don't think there's any chance of him using any nuclear weapons at all, as long as he's winning, or even holding his own. Where it becomes very dangerous if he's actually losing in a big way. Then we don't know what might happen. That could get very testy. But as it is, I don't think the complete conquest of Ukraine is really at all likely, because you would still have substantial irregular warfare, a lot of guerrilla resistance, and it would be a very major occupation effort to try to control that landmass. So I tend to not think that's going to happen, and so that doesn't seem to be in the offing. Otherwise, I guess, of course, the other issue that we've come up with lately is this Navalny, I guess I pronounce it, who apparently died in a very nasty Russian prison in Siberia. They're continuing to present the idea that he was poisoned or something. I'm skeptical of that. I think that it doesn't, as I said before, but we'll see. But at any rate, we're going to do some kind of retaliation against Russia for it anyhow. And so we'll see what that consists of. I mean, it seems like they're almost running out of sanctions, but maybe they got something else they didn't do. And the question is, well, if they didn't, why didn't they? They've been doing one set of sanctions after another. And so that's kind of the state of the situation. I tend to think that the best strategy would be to try to negotiate an end to this thing, but because I think that if anything, the Russian military is basically getting stronger as time goes by, not weaker, and meanwhile the manpower pool of Ukraine is declining. They'll end up with a depleted, asymmetrical male-female ratio and a lot of crippled men in there if they keep this up. So I don't think it's a very fruitful idea to continue this conflict. And in fact, there seems to be some real stresses going on inside the Kiev regime, as it is. I mean, the change in leadership of the army, and of course the new guy was supposed to save the day, immediately lost Avdiivka right after he took over. So it doesn't seem like he's been any great help either. So anyway, that's kind of the state of the war. I think as far as we're concerned on the money, I think that for the moment the House is out for I guess almost 2 weeks here, and then they've got to deal with the big budget issue to deal with the potential government shutdown that's coming up. So, and that's going to take a lot of attention. There is some discussion that some kind of a compromise might be worked out, where either Biden shuts down the border to some degree with executive orders, and that might be enough to appease some people on the House side or not. I don't know. And maybe a reduced aid package from the $95 billion to something more in the $66 billion, and so that's being tossed around as a possibility, and we'll see if anything develops on that. The problem we have right now is we have a very undisciplined Republican House, and a speaker who could be easily kicked out with, I guess, three. I think right now it's three Republicans that would switch sides on them, and of course all the Democrats would want to do this, I guess, or would they? I don't know. They did with McCarthy, which I thought was stupid on their part, but they did it. So I don't know. Maybe they won't do it in this case. Well, that's about it for now. So we'll just have to keep tuned into this and see what happens next in this situation. I'll of course be posting this here on YouTube and on Rumble, and of course the addresses of my social media accounts are in the description below. Until next time.